right. So, okay. So since we're recording this now, so I'm here with Christian. Christian has some questions about the JCP, and let me just tell you, Christian, that the fact that you are an open source developer, and you've participated in the JCP in the past, and you have questions, and I think this is the job that the JCP has to answer all those questions, right? So thanks for asking them and being interested.
Yeah, thanks for responding to me. So I know you must be very busy, but you still have the time to to answer all those questions from the community. So that's really great. And as you mentioned, I'm an open source developer for quite a couple of years and tried to get involved into the JCP for quite a while, but it's really hard. And I got a couple of questions because it's all very confusing for me.
Mm-hmm.
And so here's my first question for you. Because back then I had a friend who was more involved in the JCP, and he told me there is something like executive seats or something, and associate seats. And I was looking them up, and I was seeing executive seats is more or less for organizations maybe, and associate seats is more or less for people, real persons, individuals. But then I also saw that associate seats are also given to Java user groups. So that's confusing me. So maybe you can help.
Okay, so first of all, so first of all, we are having the discussion on Twitter, right? And so lots of things to discuss. So that's great that we're having a conversation here. So you're talking about on Twitter, you're talking about OpenJDK and all that. So and so I think we should get to that point. But just to make sure that we understand that the executive committee is just a little part of the JCP. Is just a place, because the objective of the JCP is to guarantee that all the specifications are open and public, and anyone can implement them, right? So that's the whole objective of the JCP, right? And so the executive committee is just a group of organizations, individual and organizations, that actually vote on the specifications to guarantee, right? So they're the people that look at the specifications, they look at the process that the specification being created, and the idea is that they guarantee that everything that's being done is being done according to the rules, so everyone can benefit from that, right? So that's the executive committee. And on the EC, we have three types of seats, right? We have the traditional seats, or the ratified seats, and the elected seats, right? So when the JCP started way back when, it was just an initiative from Sun to get licensees of the Java community to participate in the specification process, right? So Sun would appoint the top licensees as to have seats at the EC, right? So those are the what we call the ratified seats, right? So today they are appointed by Oracle. So Oracle appoints them, and then the community votes yes or no, right? So the community can
wait.
Yeah,
So I'm sorry to interrupt, but
yeah, no
you're saying that the ratified seat is possible to have when I pay Oracle money, right?
No. That was when it started, way back when. Today you don't have to pay.
Okay.
Yeah, so
I don't have to pay. Okay.
No, so today Oracle appoints people, right? Either persons or companies, organizations, right? I kind of prefer that the ratified seats are organizations, right? But there are historically has been individuals too, right? So I was actually invited by Oracle as an individual, and then I convinced them that it should not be an individual, it should be an organization, right? So but anyway, yeah, so Oracle appoints people, right, that there are that Oracle considers important, or Oracle considers they are related to Java, or whatever Oracle decides, right? So that's their prerogative. So those are the ratified seats, right? And so the ratified seats, Oracle proposes it, and the community votes yes or no, right? So the community can reject a proposal, right? And it has rejected, right? The community has rejected more than once proposals from Oracle and Sun, but then Oracle has to choose another one, right? So for example, Java, the Brazilian Java User Society, is a ratified seat, right? So we were invited by Oracle to be to join the JCP as a ratified entity, or a ratified seat, when Apache decided to leave the JCP in the past, right? So then so then that's when we got involved. I mean, we were involved before, but that's when we got involved in the EC specifically, right? So that is the ratified seats. Then there have the elected seats, right? The elected seats are anyone can nominate themselves, right? And then people elect them, right? So people can vote them. But the only person that can nominate themselves are JCP members, right? So you have to be a full member of the JCP to be able to propose yourself as elected seat, right? So for you to be a full member of the JCP, you can be individuals or companies, right? So no, the elected seats are not for companies, right? So you can be a full member of the JCP and be elected for an elected seat as an individual, right? The problem we're getting a little bit into the membership of the JCP. So for it to be a full member of the JCP as an individual, you have to be able to sign the full JCP agreements, the GSPA, right? The Java Specification Participant Agreement, right? So you have to be able to sign that as an individual. And that's not very easy to sign as an individual, right? Because if you're employed to some company, you need the company to allow you to sign it as an individual. So most people that sign the GSPA as individuals, they are independent consultants, or they are maybe university professor, people that have the ability to sign that thing on themselves, right? So that's why most individuals are not a full JCP members, because they can't sign the GSPA by themselves, right? Because they're working for a company, and because that they're not allowed to do that, right? So that is so the elected seats are companies and individuals. They're full members of the JCP, right? And so when you're a full member of the JCP, you sign a very complicated agreement, right? That basically says that you as a company or as an individual, that you're sharing a lot of your IP and a lot of your for patents, all of that, right? So there's a lot. If you take a look at the JSPA, there's a lot of obligations for you to be part of that, right? So that's for example, when Microsoft joined the JCP not so long ago, right? Everyone was happy because finally Microsoft has agreed to sign that big document. It's a little scary, by the way, right? And so, that is the biggest, the JSPA is one of the biggest things that we have in the JCP, because it really gets all those big companies, Oracle and Microsoft and Red Hat and IBM and, and so many others, and Twitter and, so many other companies, to really have a stake at the IP that is created inside the JCP, right? So basically, they're signing. I don't know by heart all the details, right, of the agreement, but we can even go point by point if anyone is interested in that. But basically, you're agreeing that if there is an IP in a specification that you own, right, and you're part of that, so you're giving rights to your IP so other people can implement. There's all kinds of agreements like that, and that's why it's a big, scary document that the big companies have their legal teams evaluating all that, so they sign it. So when you sign as a full member of the JCP, you can vote and be elected to an elected seat. Okay.
Yeah, very, very, very good. So because I have signed this agreement actually a long way back. Yeah. So cool. I'm a full member, so that's good. And it reminds me really on all the agreements we have to sign when we commit open source. So basically, IP, what you said, is basically intellectual property.
Yes.
So when I step into the JCP, I would give up the intellectual property, so to say, and give it to the JCP so people can use it, right?
Yeah, you're actually so just to be clear, you're not giving up, right? Yes. Basically, you're giving the rights to people that implement the specification fully to use your IP, right? So you're not giving it. It's still your IP, right? But you're giving a license to people that implement the full specification. That's important, right? So people that implement the full specification has the rights to implement the full specification, even if that's an IP from you or from the company that signed it.
Okay, that sounds really nice for me if I would give you the IP. And of course, it's yeah, really cool because people would then be able to implement products based on
Right.
what I have defined or agreed to define.
Yes,
Okay, that's
cool.
nice.
So
I
then,
already
we
have.
have the associated members, right? So
Mhm.
the associated members, so that was created recently. That's one of the big push that Java did to expand the membership to more people, right? So you know, so we made easier for people to join the JCP and participate in the JCP, and that's so we created some associated seats, right? So we have 2 associated seats. They are specific for this specific new type of membership. They are the associate members. So the associate members are kind of like friends of the JCP, right? So so the document, it's a lot less scary. It's a very simple document. You're not giving your IP. You know, you don't have to ask permission for your company because you're not, you know, you're not giving anything. So it's more for communities. I like to say that the associated members of the JCP are like this. They're friends of the JCP. They're promoting the JCP. They're participating on the specification. I mean, they're doing all kinds of things in a lighter way, right? So they're not signing the full GSPA document. They don't have to go to all that length and process. And it's a document that you can sign up. It doesn't matter if you're working for a company or not. You can sign as an individual. So then you can join the JCP as an associate, right? And especially for user groups. So user groups have, you know, you mentioned the user groups. Java user groups have a special document with the JCP that makes them an associate. And the Java user groups just kind of sign like a marketing agreement, right? So yeah, we promote the JCP promote us, right? So it's something very light, right? That allows even for informal organizations to join the JCP, right? So because most user groups are not legal entities, right? So they're more informal organizations. So this agreement was made to even informal organizations to be able to join the JCP. So for example, a user group like Java, it's a formal entity, right? It exists, right? It has directors and has, you know, it has a legal a name, a legal entity here in Brazil. So we are able to sign the full JSP agreement because we are a legal entity, right? So we can actually be full members of JCP. But a lot of user groups are just, you know, are informal organizations, right? So they basically have a name and a website, and they're not legally constituted. And so those groups, they cannot be full members of the JCP because they cannot sign the GSPA, right? Because they don't exist, right? So the associated members were created to allow for individuals working for companies without having their companies involved, and for non-legal entities like Java user groups, for example, to still be part of the JCP, still become associates. And then there's 2 seats, right? They're voted only by the associate members, right? So we have seats, they're ratified, seats, they are elected, and then there's 2 seats for the associated that's only the associated members vote for.
Okay, interesting. So this is basically a very easy access for literally everybody to the JCP. So that's pretty cool, actually. I found it a little hard to understand what kind of person am I. So I'm pretty sure I'm not ratified, but the differentiation between the other 2 was not so clear to me. Now it is. So thanks a lot for the explanation.
Yes, there's actually, let me see if I can get just really quick here. Because so let me just see if I can get involved. So if you go to the website, let me just share my screen here really quick. So if you go to the JCP website, and you know, on the left hand side here, you say get involved, right, and become a JCP member. You're gonna get this to this reasonable easy to see diagram, right?
Yes,
that basically shows, you know, if you're a commercial organization, those are the ways that you can join the JCP, right? So if you're a nonprofit, right? You know, see, are you a legal entity? Yes. If you're not, right? So this, and then if you're an individual, all the ways that you can be part of the JCP, right?
Okay,
So that's a good way for you to take a look, right? So, you know, so if you're a commercial organization and you can sign the JSCPA, then you have a full membership. If you're not interested in signing the JSPA, so there's no, you can't be part of you know, if you're a nonprofit and you're a legal entity, you can sign JSPA if you want, right? So, but if you're not a legal entity, you can't sign the JSPA, so you can be a partner, right? And if you're an individual, then maybe you can sign the JSPA. If you're not, right, then, you know, so I mean, so if you're employed, right, usually your employee has to join JCP. So there's all kinds of things here that you can they can take a look.
Okay,
see.
so one more question. So there is partner membership. Partner membership is different to the associate membership, right? So partner membership is like just saying, hey, I'm friends with you. Is this correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So
the partner membership, it's similar to the associate membership, but it's part. So the associate membership is individual, right? The partner membership is the associate, but for organizations.
Okay.
So the partner agreements, the one that I told you, that's like user groups sign, non-formal user groups sign, like, you know, it's like I promote the JCP promote us, and we're all friends. So it's more like friends of the JCP kind of thing. Okay.
Very nice. So, and when I have an associate membership, I can run from for the associate seat, so to say, right?
So that's an interesting thing. That's an interesting question. If you are a full member of the JCP, you can choose to run as a full to elected seat, or run to an associate seat. If you're a full member, you can decide which seat you want to run, right?
Okay.
But you decide this when you nominate yourself. You decide if you're going to run for an elected seat, or you're going to run for an associate seat, right? That's a strategic decision, right? So, you know, depending on who is competing, right? You can decide which seat you're gonna run, right? But if you are an associate member, you can only run for an associate seat.
Okay, so I'm a full member, so I have both choices.
Right.
What's the difference between those seats? Do they have the same rights or the same obligations, or?
Yes, in terms of the EC, they have exactly the same. You know, when you're elected to the EC, you have the same rights and the same obligation, because, you know, you vote on the JSR the same way, right? So when you join the EC, it's the same thing, right? But oh, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, okay, so that is a question, right? So I think that for you to be part of the EC, I think you have to sign. Or maybe no, you don't have. No, you're right. You can be an associate and be elected, right? Yes, you can. So, but anyway, at the EC you have the same rights, right? So that's not a problem. But the audience that votes is different. So if you are competing for an elected seat, right? You're being voted by people that signed the JSPA, right? So they're probably you know, they're either companies, right, or individuals that are able to sign the JSPA. If you are running for an associate seat, right, then basically the people that are voting on you are individuals and communities, right? So then it depends on who do you think knows you more, where you have more visibility, you know, who you represent more, right? Because you know, you're going to be representing either one of those groups into the EC.
So if I'm good with networking with Oracle, and don't know all these kind of companies, and I'm well known in the company world in the US, so I better run for elected seat. But if I'm just, you know, a sole open source developer like I am, and I'm involved in some user groups, maybe then I better run for the associate seat.
Yes. If, you know, if you're a Java user group leader and you know a lot of other user groups, for example, or if you if you're an open source developer, they have lots of contacts with individuals and people from the community, or even if you're a company, right? I mean, there has been companies in the past that they saw themselves as more connected to the community than to the companies, right? And so they run for an associate seats, right? So yes, I know you can decide to do that.
Okay, and who can actually vote for me? Can everybody who's part of the JCP can vote, or is there any restrictions, or I don't know, do I have to be a full member to vote, or who can vote?
Yeah, so all the full members vote for elected and ratified seats, right? Because remember, the ratified seats are, you also vote, right? You vote yes or no,
yes,
right?
Yes.
So the full members of all the full members of JCP vote for all the ratified and elected seats, and all the associated members vote for the associate seats.
So the associate members cannot vote, in example, for ratified seats.
No, they cannot.
But the full members can also not vote for the associate seats.
Right. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So it's two completely different demographics, right? So when you decide how you're going to run, so you're a full member. When you decide how you're going to run, you will actually choose which demographics are going to actually vote on you, because they don't mix.
Okay, that's good. That's an important distinction, I think. Okay, very good, very good. So so we have the 2022 elections coming up, I think, so everybody can nominate themselves.
Yes, the nominations are open right now. Yes,
that's true. So that's a good thing, because I think being part of the JCP is always a good idea if you're active or not. So like being part of any open source community. So I wanted to do my part there, and I was thinking, okay, just let me check out what these people are actually doing. And then I went to a website, and there is a list by JCP stage. And I was seeing JCP review 0 and early draft 0, public draft 0 proposed, and you sense the pattern. So most of them are final release already. So I would think, okay, what are you actually doing? Because there seems to be no JSR open.
Well, so basically, so a lot of that's historically, a lot of the JSRs were connected to Java EE, to Java Enterprise Edition, right? So we had because of the three separations, right? Java SC, Java EE, Java ME, right? So the JSRs were divided by Java EE, Java SC. Actually, there was even the EC was divided in the past, right? You had Java EE seats and Java SC and ME seats, right? So basically, Java EE was a big part of the JCP, right? And so a lot of the most active JSRs were actually JSRs connected somehow to the Java EE side, right? Especially because as if you remember, especially because Oracle has a special position in the JCP, right? So all of the Java SC specifications, right, are led by Oracle, right? So that's an important point of the JCP, right? So I'm not sure if we changed that or not, but I think that still stands, right? But in the past, that was for sure. And then remember, the core Java was not open source, right? So the participation of the public was very restricted in lots of different ways, right? And so and then that was one of the things that we're discussing about the future of the JCP, right? So how can we make the JCP more open? And there was always this split, right? So Oracle was very willing to get the Java EE side very open, very participative, but Oracle always wanted to keep the rights around the core Java version, right? So and so because of that, one of the most courageous things that I ever seen Oracle do was to release the Java EE specifications to Eclipse Foundation, right? That was there was a big discussion about how open the JCP can become, and as you know, the Apache Foundation disagreed with it and left the JCP. several years ago, and there's all kinds of discussions on how to make the JCP open. We did improve a lot of the openness of the JCP since then, but even then, there are discussions about that, and there's always this thing that there is a big difference between core Java and all the other libraries, right? So when Oracle decided to, there's one fundamental thing that we have to understand, right? So the JCP right now, it's not, and just I think that's, we have to be clear and honest about what the JCP is and what it is not, right? So the JCP is not an independent organization, right? It is a department inside Oracle. So all the agreements that we sign, so the JSPA is an agreement that you sign with Oracle, right? So it's not like Oracle is signing an agreement with the JCP and then you are signing an agreement with the JCP. It's like you are signing an agreement with Oracle. So Oracle has a special place inside the JCP, right? And so that's the reason why Oracle is the company that puts the most money inside the process, right? Also, right? So is the company that has more people working on the specifications, and the heavy lifting of the JCP is done by Oracle. It's a burden and a blessing at the same time. So they have more rights and they put more effort, right? So they have the responsibility of putting more effort. So because of that, there's no way people wanted to improve the JCP in a way that would make the whole specification more open. But the only way to do that was to separate the JCP from Oracle, right? But then there's this thing that there's the Java core that's, I don't think Oracle, Sun did not want to do that. Oracle doesn't want to do that either, right? So there is, Oracle wants to have a level of participation in the Oracle core, right? That's important for them. And so that's why when Oracle decided to give the IP, all the IP for the Java EE specifications to the Eclipse Foundation, I think that this was a huge courageous move, right? Because it's a huge IP, amazingly important, right, for the whole community. And so basically Oracle, instead of separating the JCP into different organization, Oracle separated the bulk of the specification into a separate organization. There is Eclipse Foundation, right? So I think that's that. So what happens is that now all those specifications, right, they are final on the JCP because they're not going to be improved in the JCP anymore. They all will move it to Eclipse, and now Eclipse is gonna continue them forward, right? Whatever process Eclipse wants. And remember that even for Eclipse, that was a huge move because before we did that, Eclipse was not a standard organization. Eclipse was an open source project organization, right? So they had to create a standards process, right? To actually receive the specification. So it was a big step, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't think I can explain how big the process was. It's like a huge step for everyone involved, right?
Yeah,
I can. Oracle was very courageous about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can imagine. So I remember back then when the discussion was where should all those specifications go, Eclipse or maybe even Apache and so on. And then there was a lot of thinking and thought, and finally it was Eclipse. And I was younger back then, and I was thinking, oh my God, this is huge. This is really, really huge. Yes.
Yes.
So also.
So just kind of going back to your question about where the specifications are. So basically, this big bulk of the specifications where a lot of companies were involved, right? Because that's Java EE, right? So lots and lots of companies involved. So all those specifications move it outside of the JCP into Eclipse. They're completely different process. We of course, a lot of the companies are also in the JCP, so we do have conversation about it, but that's all gone to Eclipse. It's a different process. Actually, I think everyone listening to this should join the Eclipse Foundation just to participate in those processes there too, right? So it's, you can participate in lots of different standard organizations, right? But then what happened is on the JCP, and then the Java ME specifications, they are all completed and final, and there's I'm not going to say no work at all, but I think there's very, very little work being done on the Java EE specifications now, right? But so they're still part of the JCP. Most of them are final. There's not a lot of work going on there. So where's the bulk of the JCP today? The bulk of the JCP are the Java specifications, right? What we used to call in the past the Java SC, the Java Standard Edition specifications. So those specifications are the bulk of the JCP. So now, one thing I wanted to explain is that the JCP is a standards organization, right? So we guarantee that the specification is open and available for everyone to implement. That's what the JCP is, right? So the JCP has rules on how you create the specification, because the specification has to be open. The parts, the building of the specification, the writing of the specification has to be open, right? So the JCP has a specific requirements on how you create the specifications and how you publish the specifications, so the specification can have a place, right? But here's important: the JCP does not force you to use a specific process of creating the specifications, right? It has rules on how this process has to be, but you can choose whatever process you want as the owner of the specification, as the spec leads, right? So it's not the owner, right? So the spec lead is the company responsible to gather all the IP from all the participants, and then provide a specification with all the IP validated and collected, right? And then provide a specification everyone can happen. And the spec lead is responsible to do the specification, the reference implementation that has to be free and open source, right? That's important because that's a change that we did in the JCP, right? It did not need to be open source in the past, but now today has to be. The reference implementation has to be open source, right? And it has to have a TCK, right? A suite of tests that test the implementation based on the specification, right? So those are the three pillars of the JCP, right? So that's the requirement of the JCP. Every specification has to have a specification, a document that says what it is, how it works, what are the APIs, right? It has to have an implementation that proves that the specification works, because there are other standard organizations that you don't require to have an implementation, right? So the specification is just a piece of paper, and maybe no one can implement it, right? So you have to have a specification that proves that specification can be implemented, and the specification has to be open source, right? That means everyone can see the code and everyone can implement the code and all that. And you have to provide a suite of tests that guarantee that the implementation meets the specification, right? So those three pillars, right? Each one support each other, right? Guarantees that anyone can implement a JCP specification and can call that a standard implementation, because there is a test that guarantees that works. Okay. That's what the JCP mandates, right? So now the process on how you, the spec lead, does all of that, it's up to you, the spec lead. So the JCP gives you a website and tools and all of that for you to run that stuff if you don't have another option, right? But you can choose anything you want. Make sense?
Yeah,
with
totally.
That, okay, so with that, let me just finish here. So with that, Oracle has decided to run the JCP process inside the OpenJDK project, right? So Oracle creates the JCP specification inside OpenJDK.
Okay.
Make sense? So when you participate on OpenJDK, there is a part of OpenJDK, there are the specification process, right? And so that is discussed inside OpenJDK. And then you think, but then Bruno, this is outside of JCP. No, it's not outside of JCP. It's inside the JCP process, following the JCP process, but it's run inside the OpenJDK project.
Okay, so but I understand it like when there is Java Enterprise specifications, I want to create or something, I go to Eclipse,
Mhm.
When there is a specification I want to create for the Java SE environment or something, I go to OpenJDK.
Right. Yes.
And somehow when I go to OpenJDK, those people would follow the JCP process or regulations, and then they would do their own things. So why would I join the JCP then and not directly Eclipse or OpenJDK?
That is a very good question. That's a very, very good question. First of all, let's separate Eclipse from the JCP, okay? Because they're two parallel certification process. They do the same thing, right? So it's so yes, if you want to do anything related to the Java, to the Jakarta EE, now it's not Java anymore, right? So the Jakarta EE specifications, right? So if you want to do anything with the Jakarta EE specifications, that's not inside the JCP. It's all Eclipse. So yeah, so you should join Eclipse, right? Yes, for sure. Now the question is, why should you join the JCP? So that is a very interesting question, because in the past, right? In the past, the only way for you to have access to the discussions of the JCP process were if you joined the JCP, because the discussions were not public. The discussions, because the JCP process allowed, in the past, the JCP process allowed that the expert group, right? So the expert group is the group of people that discuss together. So there's a spec leads, they're responsible for the specification, and there's an expert group that can participate, right? So the expert group, in the past, you had to be a member of the JCP to be part of the expert group, right? And the expert group was mostly invited, right? So you could not just join an expert group, right? In the past was like this. So then we changed the rules, right, of the JCP to make the JCP easier to participate and more inclusive, right? So now all the specifications are required to have an open process with all the discussions being done public, right?
Okay, so
then
everybody can.
actually, so anyone can participate. So you don't have to be part of the JCP to participate in the discussion. So that is very true, right? So it's very open. You can just join whatever project is going there. The discussions are public. So then it made a lot easier for people to participate in the specification process. Now, remember that I said that the spec lead merged all he's responsible to guarantee that all the IP is properly merged, right? So for the spec leads to join the IP, so the spec lead has to guarantee that you gave your IP to the JCP, right? So when you do some significant contributions, the spec lead will reach out to you and say, man, you can only do that contribution if you sign the JSPA. Otherwise, your contribution not going to be accepted. So there is a moment in time that you're going to have to join the JCP if you go too far in that route. But for most people, you're totally right. They don't have to join the JCP to participate and make a difference.
Yeah, got it. Okay, so it's all about laws and right, and so people can, use your work and all these kind of things. So, of course, quite boring stuff, but important stuff, I think.
Yes,
Because,
it's all the legalese behind the scenes, right? That what we try to do, and I think that was very important for the JCP. What we tried to do in the past was to reduce that to a minimum and make it easy for people to, because the reality is that the vast majority of people that participate in the specifications, basically what they're doing is that they're commenting on things, they're testing things out and say if it works or not, they're complaining about things on Twitter, right? The vast majority of people are participating in ways that don't require them to give any IP, right? So why we have to require them to sign a JSPA if what they're doing doesn't require that, right? So basically the way it works is, it's pretty much like an open source project, right? So, if you're using open source project and you're open issues and you comment on things, I mean, it doesn't matter what license the open source project is, right? You're just not participating in the legal part of it, right? But the moment you decide to give codes into the project, right? And it's a significant code, because, if you're just fixing a typo, that's not a significant code, right? But the moment that you're offering significant code to the project, then the project lead will ask you to sign some kind of agreement or to use a specific license, right? So that's the same thing, right? So you can probably participate in JCP without signing up, without being a member, without anything for the majority of things in JCP. And then the moment that you want to be more participants, then you have to sign in. Now, with that said, I personally think that there is one thing that you have the right to do when you join the JCP, that is to vote in the elections, right? So I do think that because there is this, there is this part of voting on the elections, right? And you know, and that is powerful, right, man? Because look, man, let me tell you this: the amount of votes that you know, because the whole JCP is a very small group, right? You know, I think we have like 800 full members or something like this, right? So it's not like a huge amount of people. So even a single vote can help change the direction of an election, right? So it's not like, you know, you're voting for the US president, right? That's like millions of votes, and then one vote might not mean a lot, right? But you know, it's like it's a small community, and so your vote counts, right? A lot. So I do think that you should join the JCP to be able to vote on the elections, right? To be able to put on the EC the people that you trust, and I think that's important part of it.
Okay, so let me summarize it a bit. So basically, when I just want to work on something, I go to the Open JDK Pro, participate, blah blah blah. At some point, somebody comes and says, "Hey, Christian, you did a wonderful job here, but this is now significant, and you have to sign the JSPA agreement so we can make sure this is you know, your IP can be used in our further work." Then I go to the JCP. And the JCP organization basically is responsible for making sure that my IP is clear. So they make this contract with me. They look at who am I and so on. And so my IP is then clear. I can contribute further then.
Right.
And as a little bonus, I can elect people to their seats, and they can make decisions on the JCP. And the JCP decisions would most likely be, how should the JCP run? So what rules do we need to clear our IPs and these kind of things? Or do I miss anything else what the JCP committee does?
There's two main important things that the executive committee does, right? First of all, you're totally right. The executive committee evolves the process, right? So so we have been evolving the process many times during the last several years, right? And so the process is more open than it was before, it's more inclusive, and all of that. And so because the EC is responsible to evolve in the process, right? Actually, every member of the executive committee is automatically a part of the expert group that evolves the JCP. Any specification, because the JCP uses the specification process to evolve the JCP. So any JSR that is involved, that changes the GSPA, right? The specification agreement, any specification that does that, automatically all the EC members are part of the executive committee. I mean, the expert group of that specification, right? So then any evolution of the process is done by the executive committee. And the second thing the executive committee does, it is votes on the specifications on each step of the specification, right? Because remember that's actually another drawing that we can get here really quick. Let me see here. Okay, let me just get about JCP. So let me see if I have here. There's a nice drawing of the specification process here. So just get this really quick here. Yes. Okay. So share screen. So if you come here to the JCP site, and then you have about the JCP, you get program overview, right? You have this drawing here. That's the process of the JCP, right? So you have, you know, the JSR is proposed, right? And so there is a process that we vote if the specification is valid or not for the JCP. There's a lot of specifications that are not valid for the JCP, right? Maybe the technology is too early, maybe there's not enough interest in the market, right? So the AC decides if that thing should be a specification or not, right? And then there is a process of development, and eventually there is a public review, right? So in the public review, it's interesting because the public review used to be very, very important to pass, right? Because the whole draft development was done in secrets, right? Until it became public. So then the public review process was very, very important. Today, it's less important, right? Because basically this whole draft and community public review is all done in the open anyway, right? So it doesn't matter that you have 90 days, because you actually have, from the very beginning, the process has to be open anyway, right? And then there's an approval ballot for the public review, and then once it pass the ballots, then it becomes a specification, right? So so that is voted by the executive committee as a specification, and then it becomes public and available for everyone, right? Until it's done here, you actually don't have the IP rights. That's an interesting point, right? So you can participate in the discussion, you can even start implementing it, but really until it's approved, the final release approved, you don't actually have the rights, right? Because it can change, right? So someone can pull some of the IP off at any moment before the final release, right? And so then until it's final, you don't actually have the rights to implement the specification. So that's one very, very important thing that the executive committee does, is actually give the final approval of the specification. And at that moment, it doesn't matter. You cannot remove your IP anymore, because you already agreed that your IP will be available once the specification is final, right? So then you cannot backtrack from this moment on. And then of course, after that, there are maintenance process, right? So you can improve the specification, you can release new version of the specification, etc. Okay, so this is the whole JCP process. And just since we're here, here's a JCP process document, right? So you see, those are all the versions of the JCP until today, right? So we're in version 2.11 right now. So all those, because the process of the JCP is a JSR, right? It's built. Actually, it's not a JSR. It's built through a JSR process. And remember, that's the final result of a JSR is three things, right? Is the documents, it's a implementation, and a test, right? The only JSR that's different is if it is a process JSR, right? That is it changes the JCP process itself. Then all it has as a result is the document, because we don't have an implementation and we don't have a test, because it's not software, right? It's a process. So then the results of that process is the process document that explains everything I'm telling you here, the elections and the voting and the EC and all that. This all described here in these documents, the process documents, right? So that's the process that we all agree on when we join the JCP.
Okay, can you go back one slide?
Sure.
Or one page?
Yes, I was right here about the JCP
program. Yes, program overview.
Yeah.
Okay, so it would mean I see initiation. So which would mean so when I have an idea, I go to the GCP or to OpenJDK in this case, and say, okay, I have a new idea. I would like to have this specified or standardized, and then there would be an EC vote, right? Otherwise, there would be no working on the standard, except when the voting in the GCP would be yes. Is this correct?
Right. Yes. If the JSR is not started, right, then nothing happens. Right? Yes, because that has happened in the past, right? There's been people that propose JSRs that the executive committee did not think that was the right place to be, right? So either because they didn't think that was Java related, or they didn't think it was relevant to the Java community, or they didn't think it was the right time to become a specification, right? So when you propose a new idea into the JCP, you have to go through this process of explaining why that is important, why this is Java related, why it should be a specification, why is the right time to do a specification, who are the companies that are backing that up, right? So there has been in the past a specification that did not meet any of that, and they're voted down. But once they're voted yes, they receive a specification number, right? A JSR number, and then they come to the website, and then the expert group is formed, and then everything starts from there. Yes.
Got it. So that's one reason why you should become a JCP member and vote, because you vote for the people you trust, and the people you trust, they would actually agree to an idea you like.
Right.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah, that's one reason. And the other reason would be then to vote for people who you think can make the whole process more inclusive, and look out for diversity and all these kind of things. So just the process work, so to say.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, because and remember that the final review, right? The final public review ballot, right? The final release. This final vote is extremely important, right? Because basically all the people in the EC, what they're saying is that, yes, we agree that that specification was done publicly. We agree that that specification was really listened to people, right? Because, the spec leads could simply not listen and just try to propose whatever they want, right? And the spec leads could just kind of say, oh no, I'm putting my software, my proprietary software, as a reference implementation. I mean, the spec lead could do a lot of things, right? Bad things, right? And so the EC is a group of people that look at all these, listen to what the community is complaining, or listen to how the discussion were going on, follows the whole discussion, and then say, yes, that specification meets all the quality standards that the JCP have, and it can really be a final specification, right? And so when you're voting those people in, right? When you're voting for us, for example, right? You're trusting that we are looking at all these, and that we are casting our votes based on paying attention to what's going on.
So what you're saying is the final release is also being voted by EC members.
Yes.
So they can say, no, that's not our standard, so it's not good for us, and can block it actually.
Right. So yeah, they can vote no, basically. That's very rare, right? But it has happened, right? They can vote no to say that that's not a specification. But usually, so here, let me. It's actually a good point here, right? Because look, that's a standard process, right? The whole goal of the JCP is to have a specification that people can implement, and they're in hands of the developers, right? So it's not the goal of anyone to vote no, right? The whole objective, the whole process is that it is public enough that we can see the problems along the time, right? And say, look, man, don't do that, right? Because if you keep doing the wrong thing, we're going to vote no in the end, right? So the no in the end is, is the right that we have. That's they're going to force people to do the right thing the whole process. You may see what I mean, right? The objective is not to vote no. The objective is to vote yes, right? But of course, we're just going to vote no if the spec lead did not do the right thing during the whole process, right? So we use the fact that we can vote no to change things early enough so it doesn't get to the point that it votes no.
Yeah, so it's basically checking out to see.
Start your range. So let me just get out of here. Get out of the way.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's not happening in my office. I hope.
Yes. Oh, and that's a carnivore plant right here, right behind me. So
wonderful.
So let me not be close to it so it doesn't eat my hair.
Yeah. Oh, wonderful. Yes, so I'm just living with tomato plants, and they all died recently because it's getting winter. Okay.
Right. So one interesting thing, right? So for example, we had a big discussion a few years ago, right? When when Oracle, there's all kinds of discussions or something that Oracle was doing for a version of Java and all that, and there's this push for lots of people to vote no on that, right? So we had a big discussion inside the user group, for example, and then by the time that we get to the date of the vote, right? So Oracle not only had fixed all the problems, right? And they also had made all kinds of actually, there was not the final vote, by the way. It was a previous vote, right? It was not the final vote. So Oracle was they did all the changes that people were asking, right, beforehand, and the few that they hadn't done yet, they committed to finish in the next few days, right? So so for example, so I was there at the executive committee meeting, right, in person, right, and I was discussing those things with the Oracle people, right, and we got this agreement. It was not the final vote yet, right? We're still going to have a final vote later on, and so several people did vote no, right, and so Java and a few others, we did vote yes, because we saw that Oracle was doing the right thing, right? And so that was a big discussion inside the user group itself, right? Because lots of people disagreed with the fact that we vote yes for the user group, right? So lots of people from the user group disagreed that we vote yes, right? But actually, we were there with Oracle discussing things and seeing the change that they did and see that. So we voted yes on that. Not, remember, it's not the last version, right? So we still had a chance to vote no later on, right? We voted yes with a vote of confidence that Oracle not only had done most of the things that need to fix things, but it also promised to fix the other things in the next few days, which they did, right? So we voted yes as a vote of confidence. Other people voted no as a way to force Oracle to finish doing the thing. So it's different approaches that we're going to use to force the spec lead to do the right thing, right? But it's all part of the process, all part of the discussions.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so interesting. So it looks to me that being a JCP member is most most beneficial when you want to work on OpenJDK and do things. But of course, you also vote for the people on the EC. But apart from that, when I'm just a JCP member, if I'm interested in the project, it's really hard to contribute anything to the process of the JCP itself. So I would have to become a member in the JCP, so I have a seat there, and then I can actually contribute to the process.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look, remember that this is, I understand what you said, and I think that's the right path, that's the right idea. But remember that to contribute to the JCP, there's small levels of contributions that you can do, even if you're not a member. Even on the JCP process itself, remember that the JCP evolves using the JCP process, right? So on the evolution of the JCP process, you can comment on, you can open issues, you can participate in the discussions, even if you're not a member of the JCP itself, right? So the process is open enough that anyone can participate, even if they don't sign anything.
Yeah, I got it. So
right.
when I want to,
that's an interesting thing, and for me, this is a big change, man. You know, I'm kind of stressing this out because for me it's a big change, because when I started the JCP, when I started, when Java started, right? So the JCP was only available for companies, right? And it was only available for licensees of the Java technology, and then it was expanded to people that were paying to join the JCP, right? So companies, they're paying to join the JCP. And then the moment that the JCP opened up the possibility for individuals to join, actually individuals could participate if they were invited to be part of the expert group, right? But you know, you could not participate otherwise, right? So and so the moment the JCP created for the first time the rule that allowed individuals to participate in the JCP was charging $100 for individuals to join the JCP, $100 a year, right? So I joined that. I joined the JCP. I paid $100, right, to join JCP. And many years later, Patrick Curran, that was the head of the JCP, the PMO of the JCP at the time, he said that I was the only person that ever paid to be part of the JCP, right? And that is a funny thing, but at the same time, it shows that it was not available for everyone, really, right? So the way we try to improve the JCP in the last several years was to make sure that anyone that wants to participate, right, could participate in some sense, right, in some real sense, and could participate, could contribute, even if they couldn't pay, even if their company didn't want them to do, right, even if they couldn't sign, they didn't have a, you know, so we try to make it very, very easy for everyone to join.
Yeah. I think that's important. And I think when I started with Java was just, closed and proprietary. And in the past years, it has opened so much. Everything went open source. Everybody can participate. I'm so super glad to hear that even you can participate on the JCP process. And now finally I understand why this is still relevant, because it's basically protecting the IPs from what we do in the OpenJDK project. So yeah, I think this helped me a lot to understand more and better about JCP.
Yeah.
So
since you mentioned OpenJDK, let me just kind of do one quick thing here. So OpenJDK right now has the JAP process, right?
Yes.
And so it's Java Enhancements Proposal, right? So Java Enhancement Proposal, JEP, right? So the OpenJDK has a JAP process, and many people, when OpenJDK proposed that, right? Many people thought that the JAP was replacing the JSR, and that is not the case, right? Because the JAP process, it's focused on implementation, right? It's not focused on specification. Of course, there is specification as part of the implementation. There is also specifications involved, right? So OpenJDK still follows the JSR process to submit the JSRs to the JCP, right? And so we still approve the specification, all that. But the discussions happen inside OpenJDK, inside the JAPs, right? But the JAPs are more they're implementation based, right? So there's a lot of things that goes on the JAP that has nothing to do with the specification, right? You know, how you implement something, how you improve performance, how you improve security. None of those things affect necessarily the specification itself, right? Is the implementation of OpenJDK. So the JAP process are focused on the implementation of the OpenJDK project itself.
Yeah, it makes sense. So when I wanted to build a new feature to have Java, sending a rocket to the moon or something, so this is my specification. I go through the JCP most likely, but then at some point the implementation details maybe end up in the JEP, and at some point people will think, okay, you don't need a diesel engine to go to the Mars or something, so let's fix performance here, and so the standard or the specification itself does not change, so it's not affected. And so I just open a JEP. Yeah, got it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So those two processes, they basically go hand in hand those days, right? And so and I think that's very, very beneficial. And interesting enough, that was one of the interesting things, that when the OpenJDK decided to move into a 6-month release cadence, right? One of the big questions was, can this be done inside the JCP, right? Because if you take a look at the specifications, right? If you take a look here, let me share the screen again here. If you take a look at the process itself, right? Oh, shoot. If you take a look at the process itself, oh man, I don't even know what I shared. So here, okay, share. All right. So when you take a look at the process itself, right, you're going to see that we have, 2 to 4 weeks, and then 7 days, and 30 to 90 days, and then, 7 days. I mean, there's all kinds of timing here, right? That people said, can we do 6 months release cadence and still follow that's the same timeline, right? So yes, that's we have a lot of discussion with the OpenJDK guys. We work together, right, to actually get this thing done fast on our side, so they can do fast on their side. So there's a lot of collaboration between OpenJDK and the JCP to guarantee that those specifications are available timely, right? So the release cadence can happen every 6 months.
Yeah, very nice, very nice. Yeah, so I think I got it now. Eventually, Jakarta is Jakarta with Eclipse, OpenJDK is OpenJDK, but they talk to the JCP, and JCP basically protects the OpenJDK, so all are happy and friends. So isn't that a good thing these days?
That's a good thing, and I think that's great, right? For the last few years, a lot of important companies joined the JCP, right? And I think that's the more open, the easier we got to the process to make the process. I think that better for the Java community, right? Because when you have the big guys. Because remember, right, when you have the big companies like Oracle and Amazon and Twitter and Microsoft and IBM, and you have all those big players, right, and many others, right? I mean, just mention a few of them here. But when you have all those big players, they're the owners of a big amount of, Red Hat, right? IBM and Red Hat is one thing today, but, they used to be separate. But, when you have all of those companies have a huge amount of IP, a huge amount of patents, right? A huge amount of code that they created. So when all those companies are agreeing to be part of the process, what happens is that the whole Java community has access to all of those IP from all of those companies, right? And so we can really implement things that are beneficial for all of us without having to be fighting legal battles all the time.
Definitely. So it's just one question. So if I want to get involved into all these things, and I should check out if there is JSR where I can actively work on or give my comments or contribute and all these kind of things. So where would I look?
Okay, so the best place to go is the JSR by stage, right? Because then you can see which JSRs are in which stage, right? So for example, let me just kind of get here. Share screen again, right? So if we go, okay, so if you go here, JSRs by stage, right? Then you're gonna see here which one to review and early draft, blah blah. So we have 9 active JSRs right now, right?
Okay.
So those are JSRs. They're actually actively being working on right now, right? So so Java Compiler API, Java Data Objects, right? So those are the JSRs that probably have some kind of activity going on right now. You can see, right? Take a look who is the spec lead of a lot of them is Brian Getz, right? Because those are, you see, we have at the same time, we have Java SC 19 and Java SC 20, right? So, those are actually 18, 19, 20. They're going on parallel at the same time as JSR, because those are the different release of the Java specification cadence, right? So, so that those are really the specifications that are going on right now. So you have the visual recognition API. I mean, those 3 here, SC 18, 19, 20, those are the Java version themselves, right? Remember that the Java SC specifications are umbrella specifications. There's a lot of specifications under it, right? And then we have the visual recognition specification, portlets, right? Still, maybe it's something that you didn't believe exists, right? Java C8, right? Still going on, right? That's a maintained release. You see, there's a maintained release. So that's that's past version of Java being maintained. And then public pluggable annotation, Java data objects, and Java compiler API. So there's a few ones that you can participate.
Yeah, I guess I have to check something out here. Actually, I'm surprised that data objects is still a thing.
Yes,
but apparently it is. Yeah, very nice. Okay, so I'm going to check the active things here.
And another interesting thing, there's a lot of dormant JSRs, right? So those are JSRs that the specification lead has not released any versions, any new draft versions for a long time, right? And so we do keep an eye on those JSRs, right? Because we might take a look and reject them or stop them or something like this, right? Or we ask the spec lead to withdraw them if they're not interested in moving them anymore. But the dormant JSRs are also an interesting place to take a look, because if there is something that you look here and you think that's interesting for you, maybe we can help you get in contact with the regional spec lead and see if you could take that specification forward, right? If you want to, right? So that's another place you can take a look to see if there's something here. A lot of those specification has been superseded by something else or something like this, right? But those are dormant JSRs. They never got finished, by the way, right? So they're still they're just stopped right now. And as you can see, there has been a few JSRs rejected, right? Most JSRs they're being withdrawn. Right? So the withdraw, a lot of the withdraw JSRs are the ones that no one likes it, right? For some reason, or the executive committee says, no, this doesn't sound right. And the spec lead, instead of pushing it forward for a vote, they decide just to withdraw, right? So those are the withdraw. So you can see there's a lot of ideas that did not become a specification in the past, right? For some reason, right? So, all of these is documented. There's a lot of history behind the JCP, so you can take a look at all the things that happened in the past too.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, so better look into the active JSRs. if you're really feeling, like it's, then maybe look at the Dormant and see if it can help.
Right.
But probably don't look at the Withdrawn except you're really doing it better.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Do Withdrawn. Maybe you can just look at for history purpose and figure out
Yes.
what ideas that did not work. Maybe you can come up with some interesting things. And of course, the final release, right? The 266 JSR, their final, that is the final document, right? So that's the document that you can download, you can implement yourself, right? And there's a lot of open source projects. That's an interesting thing, man, because you're talking about open source. The final release is where a lot of open source projects start to participate on JCP, right? Once the specification is done, then people can implement it, right? And so there's a lot of projects that implement those specifications, and that's another connection with the open source community.
Yeah, absolutely. So no open source developer likes to write code, which is then changed many times. So interface change all the times and so on. So we all wait for the final release, so we know what to do.
Right. No. So basically, the final release of the specification is interesting, right? Because basically, that is a stable specification, right? That you can implement, and that all the IP there is available for you, right? So then there's a lot of innovation that you can do by looking at that.
Yeah, and we must not forget that only when there is this final status, I actually have access to that IP. Before that, it's dangerous a little bit.
Yeah, so
very good.
It's just not available, right? So
yeah, that's right.
It's there, right? So but why did the I think the most dangerous ones maybe are the Dormant JSRs, right? So if you see a Dormant JSR and you try to implement it, then so the spec lead is not working on it anymore, right? And you're trying to implement something that you don't have the rights for. So I think that's the only time that's dangerous. But the active specifications are good because because they're moving in direction to be a final at some point, right? So
yeah, very nice. So it looks like it would be very beneficial for everybody in the community to just run for such a seat and participate in the JCP community, because you learn a lot about all these upcoming JSRs and changes and specifications. Maybe meet many great people as well, and can say yes or no to the features you like, or not. that's also a good thing.
That's great.
Excellent. Yeah, got it. So thank you very much, Bruno. This was super interesting for me because I tried to understand, I tried to read this, but it's so helpful when somebody who has the experience like you just explains it in easy words, and yeah, you saved me a lot of time. So thank you very much.
Cool. Thanks a lot, and thanks for agreeing to record this, because I didn't even think about it in the beginning, but actually I think we just generated an awesome content, right? That I'm going to publish somewhere later.
Yeah, you do that. You do that. It's just open source.
I think you ask an amazing question. I think those are questions lots of people ask, right? So that's great that we can have something like this to help illuminate. And with that, let me just kind of give a big caveat, right? I'm not a lawyer, right? So all of these is legal documents. I'm a developer that I'm following this process for a long time. I participate a lot in this process, but I'm not a lawyer. No one in the EC is a lawyer, actually, right? So we do rely on lawyers of the big companies to discuss the details, define print details. So anything I said here, right? Check with your company's lawyer before you take any decision, right?
Yeah, so this is no law advice, right?
Right, that's not a law advice. And and maybe something that I said here, I said on top of my head, I might be wrong. So if anything I said here, you find out that it's wrong, let me know, and I'll figure out if I was wrong or not. But
isn't it just like code, right? You always double check, you always make your tests, and you always ask your senior developers.
Exactly, that's it.
Yes.
But Christian, thanks a lot, man. It was great to have those conversations with you. I think that it's awesome, and you had such insightful questions. By being an open source developer, by trying to look at all these, you had amazing questions. I think that's going to be very helpful for everyone.
Yeah, I hope so. Thanks, Bruno, for your time, and speak very soon.
Thanks, man.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye.